Happy last week, seniors. We're going to tackle today's section is two Thomas Hardy poems. And guys, I want to tell you something. I really wish we had had more time to talk about these. I love Thomas Hardy. These are two of my favorite poems. I think they're really cool. They're kind of dark, which is it probably leans to why I like them. But they're both really interesting. I don't usually teach them because normally, guys, believe it or not, we're a lot farther in the book than we normally get. So y'all been able to cover more ground than some of my previous classes. So it's kind of fun for me to get to talk about these. Okay. So what we got is I'm going to read you the first poem, which is "Ah, Are You Digging on My Grave?" Just the title sounds dark, right? And then we're going to kind of have a discussion as we read it, and then we're going to do the work box. These are both found on your OneNote page. And my advice to you is to just drop this down, put it in the background, kind of, and read along with me. Um, Also, I'll make sure I cover all five of the questions for each of them at the bottom. For those of you who are kind enough to take the time to watch this video, it should be pretty easy. I ask you not to share these answers with the people who were lazy and didn't watch it. All right, you put in the time, you put up with listening to me. That if they don't want to, then well, then they just don't have to get the wording. Okay, so let's start with "Ah, Are You Digging on My Grave?" again by Thomas Hardy. It says, "Ah, are you digging on my grave, my loved one, planting rue? No, yesterday he went to wed one of the brightest wealth has bred. It cannot hurt her now, he said, that I should not be true." Okay, so let's look at this first stanza. What we have here is we have a dead lady who is asking questions about she feels someone digging on her grave. And she's going to go through a list of different people she thinks it is. And what Thomas Hardy is capturing here for us is the idea of how people see us at hey Kitty, how some people see us when we die. All right, it's about our memory. Okay, so the first person this woman thinks of is her loved one, her boyfriend, and she says, "Is it him digging on her grave, planting rue?" Now, one of your questions is going to ask you about the significance of the plant rue. All right, there's a lot of different plants that are graveyard type plants, and I think rue is sometimes associated with it, but it's not the most common. Hardy uses rue because rue is traditionally associated with regret. Okay, and so that's really fitting here. She thinks that her beloved is at this grave site feeling sad because she has died, and regretting things that happened. But then all of a sudden receives the answer, and she's like, "Well, no. Yesterday he went to wed, someone else." And even it says it can't hurt her now. He said that I should not be true. So the way he sees it to her is that he realizes in their mind that he's being untrue by marrying someone else, which I don't know if always that's the case, but anyway, uh, he's forgotten her and moved on. Is basically what we're getting. All right, so she knows it's not that. So let's look at the next group. She says, "Then who is digging on my grave? My nearest, dearest kin? Ah, no, they sit and think, what use? What good will planting flowers produce? No tendance of her mound can lose her spirit from death's gin." So she says, "Well, maybe it's my family come to plant flowers in remembrance of me." And then she realizes, no, it's not them because they're thinking, what's the purpose? It's not going to make her alive again. So the two people that you would think of that are going to remember you the most, the people you love, like your spouse or your kids maybe, and her actual family, like her parents, her cousins, and things like that. The two people who think are going to carry her memory on. She points out that it's not them there to visit her because they basically have forgotten her. Now, this third stanza is kind of an interesting twist. She says, "But someone digs upon my grave, my enemy, prodding slyly. Nay, when she heard you had passed the gate that shuts on all flesh soon or late, she thought you no more worth her hate, and cares not where you lie." So then she thinks maybe it's somebody who doesn't like me digging up my grave to make me feel even worse when I'm dead. And the answer comes, no, they've moved on too. They realize that you're a dead person. What's that worth for them to be angry? So they've moved on too. So this poor woman is laying here wondering who is digging on her grave, and she's gone through all of the usual suspects and she can't think of anything. She says, "Then who is digging on my grave? Say, since I have not guessed. Oh, it is I, my mistress dear, your little dog, who still lives near, and much I hope my movements here have not disturbed your rest." So we finally get the answer to the question. It's her pet, her dog, who used to, she used to love us. And he's answering here in that stanza, by the way. He says, "It is I, my mistress dear, your little dog, who still lives near, and much I hope my movements here have not disturbed your rest." So the dog's saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up." So, oh, it's such a sweet moment. Her little dog, the only one who remembered her. Let's wait before we make that judgment. Ah, yes, you dig upon my grave. Why flashed it not to me that one true heart was left behind? What feeling do we ever find to equal among humankind a dog's fidelity? So, we could end the poem there, and it could be a really sweet poem about how our pets will always remember us, because that's what she's suggesting here, is that, her dog is the one true. That term fidelity is a very strong word for being true to someone. So she's, oh, such a sweet ending. Well, there's another stanza. It says, Mistress, I dug upon your grave to bury a bone in case I should be hungry near this spot when passing on my daily trot. I am sorry, but I quite forgot it was your resting place. So the dog's actually there just to bury a bone. He forgot she was even there. So, wow, it went from a sweet ending to a really sour one right away, right? Well, what we're getting from this poem is a theme in literature that shows up kind of frequently. To be honest with you, I've seen it in poems, and I've actually seen it in some plays too. I think Shakespeare even touches on this. In fact, honestly, the reference to Rue at the beginning might be a Shakespearean reference to something from Hamlet. Hamlet's girlfriend Ophelia makes a reference to Rue in one of her like days ramblings when she's going crazy. But it's kind of a stretch, but that could be it. So what the poem's getting at is that when we die, your funeral itself, I'm sure, is going to be a big event where people, who love you come and share it and shed tears and feel bad. But he's kind of pointing out, Thomas Hardy is, that eventually people just move on. We talked about this. If I think your class studied Tuesdays with Maury with me, we talked about it in there, where you're obviously those close to you will remember you. I mean, this person's not been forgotten. It's just they're not thinking about them as often. You got to think your spouse and your kids, and maybe depending on how old you live to be, your grandkids probably will know who you are. But pretty much every generation after that, you're going to be a photo in a photo album, and those don't even really exist anymore. Now everything being digital. Think about all the pictures you take that we never even look at. I mean, so many generations have been. When I say forgotten, it's just they may know your name, they may be able to put a name to the face, but beyond that, there's very little of us that remains after a brief amount of time. Now, we can look at this as a negative and act like, oh, Mr. Morse is being so depressing here. And that's really not the case. Because and we talked about this with Tuesdays with Maury, what this allows you to do is look at your life and realize that, yes, it's important, but we sometimes put way too much emphasis on the things we do and think that if I don't achieve this in my life, then no one's going to remember me. And kind of this poem's there to remind us that that's going to happen anyway. So what we should do with the time we have is to do things we enjoy. Obviously, leave a legacy, but leave a legacy you want, not because you're hoping to be remembered. Because, unless you do something globally impactful, I mean, more than likely, we're all going to be forgotten at some point, and that's okay. You know, we're that's not the purpose of being here. The purpose of being here is not making an impact. It is not supposed to be to make an impact that will be echoed throughout eternity. Okay, it's great if you do it, if you do it for a good reason. But for the rest of us who are just average, everyday Joes, it's okay to, enjoy your life and do the things you love and spend time with those you care about and realize that it's actually a good thing that we move on. Think about if people mourned us constantly, how rough that would be on them. When my time comes, hopefully not anytime soon, I hope that my loved ones remember me and think of me, but I also hope that they can move on and enjoy the rest of their life. I don't want them to spend it crying for me. So it's kind of a funny way to put it. That's one of the things Thomas Hardy does really well. He kind of makes humor out of very dark situations. Okay, I mean, you got to think the humor here of this woman thinking her dog of all things still loves her, and he's like, "No, I was just burying a bone here. Sorry about that." It does have a sense of kind of dark humor about it. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do the other video, which is gonna be called the workbox, which I usually teach in AP. Believe it or not, not because it's hard though. You'll be able to get it. I'm gonna do it in a separate video so I can keep these separate. Okay. So I'm gonna stop here and then I'm gonna immediately shoot over and do the workbox video. I'm gonna put them above each of the two poems on your OneNote. There won't be a separate page for these, okay? Since I haven't released this yet. All right, and then be on the lookout Wednesday for this same setup when we do two A.E. Housman poems. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop here and then I will shoot the video for the workbox.